Hi, my name's Vanessa, and today we'll be discussing engineering education in elementary schools. And for my question, I will be exploring how can engineering education be effectively integrated into elementary classrooms? So, when many people hear the word engineering, we often think about bridges or machines or complex technology. However, there is research that shows that engineering education can begin much earlier than in college or even in high schools. So, elementary students are capable of also engaging in engineering thinking, problem solving, creativity, collaboration, and hands on design challenges. I found three resources that consistently showed that engineering experiences help students develop critical thinking skills, apply their learning in meaningful ways, and connect classroom content to real world situations. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to focus on the benefits of engineering education and the challenges that teachers face when implementing it, as well as research based strategies for successful integration in the classroom. So, what is elementary engineering education? Um, Engineering looks like in the classroom. It can be defined as the process of designing solutions to problems using creativity, scientific knowledge, or critical thinking. In elementary settings, engineering is also taught through the engineering design process, which would be asking, imagining, planning, creating, and improving their design. One of the studies highlighted how students can also use literature to identify engineering problems and then design solutions based on what they've learned. This approach allows students to engage with engineering concepts while also strengthening their literacy skills, so it is cross curricular as well. Um, Engineering in elementary schools is not about teaching students advanced technical concepts, but it's instead focused on helping students think like engineers, learning how to identify problems, work collaboratively, test ideas, learn from their mistakes, as well as a variety of other skills that can correlate. Why engineering belongs in the elementary school classroom. So while researching, it suggested and had a strong support for the inclusion of engineering in elementary classrooms because of the many benefits that it provides for students. Across all three of the studies, it reported that engineering education supported problem solving, creativity, collaboration, perseverance, and student engagement. Students were encouraged to think critically about different challenges and develop solutions through hands on learning experiences. Teachers in the research also noted that engineering provides students with opportunities to connect classroom learning to real world situations rather than just simply memorizing facts. So it made it more meaningful for them. And then one quote that stood out to me stated that engineering education brings a real world perspective to children in the classroom. And I think this is especially important because students are often more engaged when they understand how their learning connects to situations they may encounter outside of school. All right. Another major finding from the research is that engineering supports learning across multiple academic subjects. So, in science, students can apply concepts such as forces, motion, energy, weather, while completing different design challenges. In math, students can use measurement, geometry, data collection, and problem solving skills to evaluate and improve their designs. And engineering also supports literacy development as well, which was a little surprising for me. It's not something you normally would think about. But students read informational texts and conduct research. They can communicate their ideas and write reflections about their learning. And then one of the studies specifically highlighted how literature can be used as a starting point for engineering design challenges, allowing students to integrate reading and engineering in more meaningful ways. As an elementary teacher, I think that this interdisciplinary approach is one of the greatest strengths of engineering education because students are not learning subjects in isolation, but they're using skills from multiple disciplines to solve authentic problems, which makes it more engaging and beneficial for students. An important part of understanding engineering education is also examining how teachers view it. So, a lot of the research found that educators overwhelmingly recognize the value of engineering education. They even reported that engineering encourages student engagement, supports collaboration, and helps students develop those critical thinking skills. However, a lot of teachers expressed concerns about their own preparedness. Many felt that they didn't have sufficient engineering knowledge or experience to confidently design and teach engineering lessons. Others reported uncertainty about how the integration of engineering into their curriculum could be possible. What I found interesting is that even teachers who felt unprepared still believed that engineering was valuable and they still wanted to continue incorporating it into their classroom, which suggested that the issue is not the lack of interest, but rather the lack of support and training. Which leads me into my next point, which is the challenges of implementing engineering education. So, um, the benefits of engineering education are pretty clear. The research identified several barriers, however, that make implementing challenging. So, the most frequently cited barrier was time, which I can definitely feel that as well as a classroom teacher. We often feel pressure to cover a large amount of content, making it very difficult to add one more thing into our already full schedule. Um, Another challenge is the emphasis on standards and testing. So, teachers felt that instructional time should focus on tested subjects, which had them leaving less flexibility for the engineering activities. Another barrier was access to materials and resources as a concern of being able to implement it. Um, and then finally, many teachers reported limited preparation in engineering education. Like I said in my last slide, they lacked sufficient training, lesson planning, and they just felt overwhelmed. Some of the research provided several solutions for addressing a lot of these challenges. One of the strongest findings across the studies was the importance of professional development. So, teachers who received training in engineering concepts and instructional strategies reported greater confidence, and they were also more likely to implement engineering lessons successfully. Another recommendation was to integrate engineering into existing curriculum rather than treating it as a separate subject. So, engineering is a natural connection to science and math. You can also connect it to literacy, which makes it possible to teach multiple standards through a single activity without having to focus on single domains at a time. The research also emphasized the importance of structured design challenges and collaborative learning opportunities. So, students benefit when they work together to identify problems, develop solutions, test their ideas, and improve their designs. A couple of examples of engineering integration in the classroom, and some of these were ones that I did as well in my classroom. So, one that I did this year was designing a bridge. I did that with my students as part of our science curriculum. We also had to create a wind resistant structure with our science curriculum as well. That was kind of built in. So, both of those would have been like examples of how to integrate those engineering concepts into your curriculum that you already have. Looking toward the future, engineering education has the potential to play an increasingly important role in elementary schools. Students today are entering a world that requires creativity, adaptability, collaboration, as well as problem solving skills. And engineering activities just help students develop all of these abilities, as well as strengthening their STEM knowledge. The research also found that teachers recognize the value of engineering and they intended to continue incorporating it into their classrooms, which suggests that engineering education will likely become more common as schools continue to emphasize STEM learning and 21st century skills. So, importantly, engineering education is not only about preparing future engineers, but it's also about helping all students develop the skills needed to just solve problems and think critically because you use it every day in life. So, it's pretty important. In conclusion, the research clearly shows that engineering education provides significant benefits for elementary students. It supports critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, perseverance, as well as academic achievement across all major subject areas. It also helps students connect their classroom learning to real world situations, which makes learning more engaging for them and just feel more important. At the same time, though, teachers do face many challenges related to this, such as time, resources, and preparation. So, research suggests that professional development, curriculum integration, and ongoing support are essential for successful implementation of the engineering principles. Ultimately, engineering education offers valuable opportunities for students to become innovative thinkers and problem solvers. So, by introducing engineering concepts at the elementary level, educators can help prepare students for future academic success and complex challenges that they're going to encounter throughout their lives, which is important. And then these are my 3 resources that I used for my research. Thanks for listening.